Okay, well, welcome back, listeners, viewers. As mentioned in the previous video, this is the last question I have for Lisette. And just, again, thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate it because we do have a lot to say. Can't even get to everything, but, you know, that's what the other videos and other series are going to be about. So just kind of take us on home, Lisette. Really just wanted to ask you, it's not funny, but a question I have. So how do you feel when others, it can be within your community, we have, you know, whatever community means, or, you know, outside of your community, when someone refers to you as a different race or ethnicity that you're really not?
Ooh, oh man. I think it's in stages. And I think I was younger, in case you can't see or know, like I have curly hair. So
No, you can't see it.
I was, I was always asked or assumed that I was Puerto Rican.
Ah.
And I remember I was like, I never understood why people would ask me like, "Are you Puerto Rican?" And I'd be like, "No." And so someone was like, "Oh, it's because you got curly hair, and Puerto Ricans are known to have curly hair." Okay. And I was like, "Oh, I guess Puerto Ricans are the only Latino group that can have curly hair." And I remember it bothered me. I'll be 100% like it bothered me when I was younger because I was like, "No, like I'm not Puerto Rican." Not because I was like mad at the Puerto Ricans or like it was just this idea of like, how can my hair just automatically tell you that I fall into this category, like that I'm, and I think that's what I think bothered me the most of it all, where it was just like, oh, because you're curly hair, you automatically have to be Puerto Rican. Mm-hmm. And knowing now as an adult that my DNA is made up of a hodgepodge of things that led to this wonderful, beautiful hair that I have. And that is its own video to talk about my journey to accept my hair as it is and embracing it as it is. That I remember that being something that bothered me growing up. And I can't pinpoint as to like why it sort of just stirred those sort of like emotions of it, but I knew it did because, and I think it was more because you have this identity that you're trying to hold on to, like I am Mexican, like and that's who I am, but yet I'm still American, and then that's sort of, like I mentioned earlier in one of my other videos, like you're always going in between these two very different cultures and ways of thinking, and you're navigating it with parents who were brought up a certain way, in a very different, environment, and now they're trying to impose that environment into an environment here in the US where it just does not, fit well, or it doesn't fall into the United States narrative of the way things are supposed to be. But I think now, and I would say probably within the last maybe 2 years, if you were to say like, oh, are you Puerto Rican or are you, I've never been confused as Cuban. So, but, like any other,
okay.
Any other, Latin American, country, like I hope, and I hope that my response is like, no, but I take that as a compliment because they're great people or great culture and whatnot, and have that mindset more now than ever, where it's like, it's not about tearing down, because it has happened. I have seen others who are called Mexican, or being asked like, oh, are you Mexican, or they automatically assume they're Mexican. Their response is like, oh no, like it's the worst thing you can call them is Mexican. And it's like, well, that kind of hurts a little bit, because it's, what's wrong with being called Mexican? What's wrong with being called Cuban, or Venezuelan, or Puerto Rican, or Ecuadorian, or Dominican? Like there's nothing wrong with being called that, and your reaction shouldn't be like, oh my goodness, no, like how dare you, versus like instead of just saying like, oh no, but I'm Mexican, but hey, thanks, because they got great food, or they have great culture, or whatever, whatever it may be. But I think there's still that sense of like we don't readily support each other. I think more so now there's more of that movement to be like, hey, we all are struggling with a lot of the same issues and a lot of the same things, so we need to support each other. But I think traditionally it hasn't been that way, and I think just seeing that play out of like, hey, there's nothing wrong with being called Mexican, and why don't you take that opportunity to educate the person that made that assumption and be like, hey, not all of us are Mexican, there's other ethnicities that exist out there in Latin America, or whatever, but I'm not going to bash that country that you call me or you assume that I'm from, which I think tends to happen a lot. There's this sort of, that I've seen, just kind of heard or seen a lot of, hey, like this very just like negative and ugly response to being called particularly Mexican. And I get it, like people here in the United States just want to make things easy for themselves and want to lump us all into something. I think that's why Hispanic was created, and you have this whole thing of like Latino, Latina, Latinx, and like this whole idea where you have to lump us all together into something versus identifying. Well, there's Ecuadorians and there's Peruvians, and then you have Mexican, you have like this Guatemalans and things like that, because it's how you should be identifying. You want to lump them all under one thing. But yeah, I think that's really where I kind of see it, and I think it's where I kind of came with it, and understanding it, and accepting that my beautiful curls might identify me as Puerto Rican, but they might identify me in some other things. And like I said, it's been a whole other journey as a Mexican to embrace curls. It's such a fascinating thing to see, because I have other family members who don't embrace their curls completely, and it's interesting to see that. But yeah, to your question, I think it bothered me when I was younger to be referred to, because I was like, no, I'm Mexican. Like, why can't you just
accept that, like that's what you are.
That's what I am. Like, I'm no other. But I think as an adult, I try to. It hasn't happened as often as it used to, but when it does, I try to take it more of a learning and teachable moment of like, hey, like I'm not. Thank you for, assuming that I am of a great, other country and place, but I'm not. But I'm Mexican, and not all of us, just because I have curly hair or whatever. Like, just take that as a teachable moment of like, we all come in different shades, different textured of hair as well, and doing so that.
I just had to put another hand clap because I think it's so.
I love those hand claps.
Wonderful to see people just embracing who they are. Embrace your curls. I'm also, natural right now. I have had a blowout, but hey, we've been in COVID, so we won't talk about that. But we will thank Lisette for her time again. I really appreciate it, just being so open and honest. And I've learned a lot about you that I did not know. And I think the audience and everyone's listening also learned a lot about you as well. Lisette, any kind of final words you would like to say before we wrap it up today?
Yeah, no, I definitely want to just say it's been interesting to have this conversation with you and with all of you kind of listening and who are watching. And I hope that you see sort of where my heart and like Martina's heart are really at. And I might not always have the answers to everything, and I might not always say everything in the right way, but I hope my intentions and honesty come out through. But one of the things that I think about is, where do we go from here, and how can we, from our own spaces, as big or as small as they may be in our own places, what can we do? And I hope that you all who are watching think about that too. What can you do, especially if you're one that really wants to think through what racial equity is, and what that access for everybody means. Definitely think about it, and let us know, because I think I'm curious to kind of hear what y'all's experience has been, and how that has shaped you, and how, whether it's personally or professionally. And hopefully we can continue having more of these conversations together, and even having conversations around questions that you all put in the comments. I think that I definitely want to see that. I know Martina and I together want to be able to do that, and address some of the things that you all are interested in.
All right. Well, that's it for this round of interviews. Like I said, we will be back with kind of more insight to really looking at, obviously I'm Black, Lucette is brown. So really kind of devolve, really just, not really so much interview, but just kind of us talking around some certain themes that we've spoken about in her interview, and also in mine. So stay tuned. I've said that a lot. Subscribe. I've said that a lot because I want y'all to. And take care. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.